Welcome to Transforming Toward Customer-Centricity. This is the very short conference session or keynote version. It is the micro version of my 9-hour workshop of the same name. If you're curious about the larger body of content, please check it out at deltacx.link/ttcc-training. I'm Debbie Levitt. I've been a CX and UX strategist, designer, and researcher for over 20 years. My company is called Delta CX, and we're a full-service CX and UX agency. In addition to doing projects, we also consult with companies to help them improve their UX teams and practices, and the relationships between other departments and UX. We also go into companies as consultants and change agents, find what's not working, improve processes and teams, and help companies transform toward customer centricity. That's why clients often call me Mary Poppins. I fly in, fix everything I can, sing a few songs, and then fly away to where I'm needed next. Also note, I am saying CX and UX interchangeably. When UX is done right, it is CX. And I don't want to die on the hill of who's a customer, who's a user, and who's a human. If they can possibly do any business with us, I will call them a customer, whether or not they are paying or the decision maker. CX is the table, and every department sits at the table. Everybody at this table needs users, customers, and partners to survive. Everybody at this table hopes for more and more humans who will pay us, buy from us, license our system, consume our content, interact, and engage. Everybody at this table needs people who will sign up to our platform, read our notifications, and try our suggestions. Customer centricity means that every domain in our company has a seat at this table. Their perspectives are important. They each have power and autonomy in their own domains. Everything they do affects the experiences our customers have, and any one or more of these can be poor CX and kill the relationship. I've created 11 pillars of customer centricity. Business strategies, goals, and initiatives are based on what we've learned about current and potential customers. Research first and often. Guesses are signs that we need more research and knowledge. Quality and value are defined by customers. Customer obsessed, not competitor obsessed. Competitors are often getting it wrong. They're already working on the next thing. Why would we want to steal their current thing? That's not disruptive or innovative, and it could be a mismatch for our target audiences. Task-oriented, not feature-oriented, which I'll talk more about later. We are always checking for product-market fit, every feature, every product or service. If it doesn't match customers' needs or it works against customers' needs, we should stop and question why we would knowingly build something with poor product-market fit. Teams are given the time and budget to do their best work. Ethics, diversity, equity, and inclusion. We can't be customer-centric if we're not invested in all of our customers. We aren't customer-centric when we trick customers into actions they didn't mean to take. Reduce and eliminate tricks and deceptive design, formerly known as dark patterns. Real accountability, including actions and follow-through. Critical thinking and speaking up are rewarded. People feel empowered. Customer experiences and business metrics are both improving together. And quality over speed. A great model for examining and calculating the real costs of our guesses and mistakes is the cost of poor quality from Lean Six Sigma. Start with what the company spent internally on the project and all the time it took multiple teams. How about marketing costs and sales efforts? Did anybody write training on these features? What did it cost us to delay and fix things? You can start to imagine all of the time and money spent internally on this project. Plus external costs. You might need to work with someone from customer support to see what complaints, tickets, or issues they have about your project's features. Can we find numbers on customers who canceled or downgraded? Can we figure out the costs of MVPs and especially failed MVPs? Environmental costs for physical objects are important. What's the environmental cost when everybody needs a replacement part or a dongle? Companies are sweeping the costs of poor quality under the rug. Document parts of projects that create any of these wastes or costs. Add it to the risk register or risk documentation. Bring this up in retro because Agile is about constantly reflecting on how things went and then actively making improvements. To nudge our company towards customer centricity, we might need to do a little digging on past projects. We all know of at least one project at our company that was a disaster. Time wasted, money spent, morale was awful, customers unhappy. What did that cost? Do we know or can we estimate it? We might have to mention that project here and there to remind people of why we need to have higher standards for what gets released to customers. And the ROI is on this screen. These are all of the costs that we will save by doing a better job the first time, next time. Customer centricity is hot, and some teams are starting to ask good questions. Look and listen for allies. Scrum Masters are asking why we have so many failed MVPs. Project managers are looking at the costs of features we guessed at. Agile coaches are realizing that no real innovation came out of workshops. Strategists or marketing are wondering why it's so hard to meet our goals. Support and CX are reporting higher complaints, angry tweets, and low ratings. Sales is struggling to win or retain customers. We know we're losing to competitors. We're hearing more about the importance of CX. Or nowadays, Amazon is customer obsessed, so we should do that too. Hey, any door is an open door. Let's walk through. Since bad KPIs are common at many companies, let's spend a little time understanding Northstar metrics, though this is a very short version and I suggest Googling it to learn more. Your Northstar metric matches essential business and user goals. It's the main way our company will measure success that is likely to lead to other things we want, like revenue. Some well-known companies have made their Northstar metrics public. As of 2021, here are some that I found. Spotify, time spent listening. Amazon, number of purchases per month. Airbnb, number of nights booked. Quora, numbers of answers to questions. Uber, rides per week. Notice that these are leading metrics. They are upfront customer actions. They're not the results or outcomes from actions such as revenue or profit. They are metrics around direct user actions. You can also see this as if we understand target users' tasks and needs and can build what matches those, we will be able to generally measure that success through this main number. The Northstar metric is an early moment where a customer experiences success in your system. Getting an answer to a Quora question and listening to Spotify music are good Northstar metrics since they indicate user success, we can measure them, and we can create innovations or incremental improvements that can lift these metrics. They're also tied to business success in that if Quora users are getting answers and Spotify users are listening to music, we might be meeting or exceeding business goals. There are other measurable moments that happen before someone gets a Quora answer or plays a song on Spotify, like posting a question or searching for songs. Those are our input metrics that we could measure but aren't the true mark of user success. Slack and Facebook are doing it differently by counting active users. They just want to count breathing humans. It's not about the actions people take, it's just that they're here. But it's a little different for Slack, who charges by the active user. This is a bit of an input metric around behavior. Are people using this Slack workspace? But it will also directly lead to revenue. Facebook just wants to count active humans and bots for a big vanity metric, which is a reminder that sometimes companies put the customer experience aside to make the numbers or create lifts in metrics that executives are looking for. If the Northstar metric is a mismatch, it can cause what I like to call customer periphery, the opposite of customer centricity. We might not be focused on real customers' needs that lead to customer and business goal success. For example, imagine a dating site is measuring how many people liked you, how often they notify you about new local members, and your profile views. That's nice, but that's not really a measure of customer or business success. What about more time in our dating ecosystem? That's nice, but also not really a measure of customer or business success. More time might mean they're having trouble finding a good match. How about the number of profile matches that we send you? If we measured success by the number of profiles the system suggested to you, we might build features that send you as many humans as possible each week, regardless of the quality of those matches. While some people are into quantity when they're on a dating website, most people are looking for quality. But if quantity were our KPI, our teams might cook up features like ignoring your search filters, suggesting matches that are very far away, or suggesting people with very different views and lifestyles. You could see a rise in metrics, but is it the right rise? Let's look at some examples of a key KPI becoming customer periphery as we drive everything in product, CX, and engineering towards making those numbers look good. We just talked about how a dating site focusing on numbers of profiles we claim are matches could lead to teams making some customer peripheric choices. I have an interesting story related to this. I met my future husband on OkCupid. He lived in Italy and asked OkCupid for only very local matches. I lived in San Francisco and asked OkCupid for anybody in North America. We think a glitch showed him my profile. He looked, decided I was too far away, and didn't write to me. At the time, OkCupid had a list you could look at of people who saw your profile but didn't take action. I was checking that list at the time in case it had any good matches who were shy. And I hit the life and love jackpot. OkCupid later announced that they were going to remove that page because if anybody saw your profile and didn't contact you, they're obviously not interested and just a waste of time. This makes me wonder what KPI they're trying to meet that this worked against. And it makes me wonder how many people missed out on meeting their shy but perfect person. If a company had page views as a KPI, this could result in teams building processes and workflows that happen across multiple pages. Rather than building more efficient processes that happen on one page or just more simply and efficiently, you are dragged across multiple pages. Heck, maybe even login is on its own page so that we can count one more page people saw this month. You might also see these slow-motion, dragged-out processes if our KPI is more time on pages or in the system. If pages load slowly, that might be okay since we celebrate when people are on pages for more time. If we imagine that Facebook is shooting for as many active users as possible each month, then their system might welcome fake accounts and bots. After all, we want those active user numbers to look big and growing. We might see teams building features that deliberately make it hard to delete or cancel Facebook. I remember when I canceled years ago, they told me my profile would be active for 2 weeks. This means that people are liking, commenting, and messaging you, which is all designed to make you feel like you're missing out and maybe you decide to stay. It's also bad for that profile to stay up if your safety has been threatened and you need to close your account immediately. These are examples of KPIs and metrics creating customer experiences that are customer peripheric. It's important to track how your KPIs and OKRs will manifest in team behavior and the product. Using our dating site example, a better Northstar metric might be the number of messages members are sending to each other. Like Spotify wants to measure listening time and Uber wants to measure number of rides, a dating site might find that a key metric leading to success and revenue is people messaging each other. Want to dial that up and really check for quality in both directions? Consider a Northstar metric around the number of messages that receive more than one reply. Anybody can send a message. Anybody can get a single reply, even if that reply is "no thanks" or "please go away." Maybe that conversation doesn't go beyond that. Maybe one person blocks the other. Additional replies could signify a good match and possible connection between humans. This gets us closer to dating site success without measuring obvious things like revenue. If you're not in a position to affect strategy or decide KPIs, talk to your manager and other leaders. Find support for our company taking a second look at bad KPIs and how they manifest in decisions, ethics, and our product. Change can start from anywhere. A key part of your plan to be more customer-centric will probably include creating process playbooks. Warning: many playbooks that you can find online or from corporate trainers were made by product managers and often give a lot of power to product. This might run against the change you're trying to shepherd. Rewrite these or create your own. The UX team owns UX. You shouldn't need someone else's permission to document how UX is done well and what that looks like. How should we do product or service discovery? What role does research play? If product discovery uses the same user-centered design process as projects that aren't discovery, then you might need only one playbook, which you could call a CX or UX collaboration playbook. What does CX or UX do? Where are others involved or not involved? When do you need CX or UX? What can you do yourself if there is no UX or CX resource? Not much. This can help establish that autonomy and specialty that most CX and UX teams want. How do CX or UX work with Agile and Scrum? How do we bake great customer experiences, accessibility, and 5-star quality into the definition of done? Get it all in the playbook. Write the playbook for the change you want to see. Don't write anything in here that gives away CX's power that you will try to undo later with evangelism. This is your chance to set the rules. You might need internal training or other sessions to help socialize these new processes. Make sure the training and playbooks detail who to speak to if there are questions about the new processes or suggestions for improvement. Make sure the playbook has details about each step of the process, the tasks for this step, and why we do this step. Create swim lanes or boundaries so that people aren't doing or trying to do each other's job. This is especially important since product and CX or UX often have conflict about where they think their tasks overlap. We also want to differentiate between who owns or leads a step versus who is involved or a collaborator. Note that this is a good spot to gently word the boundaries that will fix some of the problems you're seeing. For example, you might say that only UX decides when we need a workshop and they get to choose the methods and be the facilitator. That should stop that non-UX team from trying to run design workshops. Your playbook also needs outputs or outcomes of this step. Make sure these are actionable so that they inform and drive the next and later steps. Any tools, templates, or methods we prefer for this step. Success criteria. Common pitfalls. What mistakes are normally made during this step? What does failure or having done something incorrectly look like? Again, this is your chance to create some boundaries and undo some bad habits or processes. Before you try to create change, break down some walls, and rebuild them, you should map out and consider some of the blockers that could prevent that change from happening. You might be able to predict these, or they might come up as you go. Add these to your plan with their appropriate dependencies. For example, some companies think that the main ingredient needed for change is more training. Let's send everybody to Debbie's training so we will all be ready to improve customer centricity. Sure, but there still will be blockers. Do we have enough CX researchers ready to do all of the research that being user-focused requires us to do? If not, the change could still stall or fail. We will first need to hire some people or shift personnel around so that even just 1 or 2 teams are ready to try new ways of working. Are our teams empowered to break out of how we do this now and try new processes, methods, and approaches? Did we plan time to try new ways of working? It'll probably take us a lot longer than our old ways. Did we estimate this time and update our roadmaps? Did we change our release schedule so that nobody is surprised that the new project is taking longer than usual? How will we measure if our customer centricity adventures are starting to work or where we need to continuously improve? Do we have our KPIs and OKRs in place? Are we ready to track and measure everything that we need to? Does the team believe that we're tracking or obsessed with the wrong numbers? Are teams under pressure to deliver customer peripheric KPIs? Figure this out before you can experiment with changes. Map out your change dependencies. We need to spend a few moments on some things that might hold us back. There are false gods claiming to be CX or UX models, but they aren't. They often work against customer centricity. Asperologies is my made-up term for approaches that don't deserve to be called methodologies. That's giving them too much credibility. I have hours about this and how to break people's addictions to Asperologies on my YouTube channel. Look for episode 115. Here's the short version. The main Asperologies you will run into are design sprints, design thinking, so-called lean UX, which is neither lean nor UX, and democratization. Asperologies have some common characteristics that you can easily recognize, like codependency. CX or UX seems to need everybody to do their job with and for them. Disrespect of teammates' time. Asperology workshops or exercises require teammates to stop what they're doing for hours or days. Reliance on assumptions. Asperologies prioritize speed over quality. They increase business and project risk by running with guesses, thinking that'll save time. They often start with whatever a stakeholder says is our problem, challenge, or what we're building. Giving specialized work to non-specialists. Asperologies love workshops where UX work is done by those without UX knowledge, expertise, experience, skill, or talent. But where else would we do that? We don't hold workshops where everybody, including me, co-decides the back-end database architecture. Democratizing or decentralizing CX or UX is completely fake. Many non-UX roles demand to have authority and decision-making power over the user experience. But these roles never give up power or decisions in their own domain. We don't have the cross-functional team all making engineering decisions. Magically, the cries for democracy are only for CX and UX. They apply to no other domain. Even our demands for democratization aren't democratic. Fake team building. If Asperology workshops were really how we built teams, we would do them in every domain. We would have product, engineering, business analysis, and marketing workshops. But we don't, because high-performing teams respect each other's specialties and play to each other's strengths rather than trying to turn everybody into a broad generalist. Fake customer centricity. We pretend that we really care about customers and their satisfaction, but we guess who they are and what they need. We don't observe or research the people we're building for. We pretend we have empathy or sympathy, but if we really cared about users' experiences, we wouldn't rush out garbage that doesn't solve customers' problems and improve their task accomplishment. Innovation and solution theater. How many never-before-seen world premiere ideas came out of these workshops? How many solutions were wrong, non-viable, or were based on guesses versus being based on proper research? Vote for the winner. Somehow we don't all need to get together, brainstorm various product roadmaps, and then vote on our favorite roadmap. And we shouldn't pick products, features, or concepts American Idol style. We run usability tests with real users. UX doesn't hang designs at their desks and invite co-workers to vote. Emotional outcomes. Everybody enjoyed the workshop, but where are the real budget and ROI figures? What were our success criteria? Did our workshop even have success criteria? Enough buzzwords thrown in so that it sounds like CX even if it's not CX. You'll hear about customer journey maps, personas, problem-solving, prototypes, and testing. But it's usually just all theater. We're teaching leaders at our company that design or problem-solving can take hours or days. If you need to solve a problem or design a product, just throw some people in a room for hours or days. Asperologies teach that we don't have to hire more UX specialists because we can all get together and guess at solutions. Asperologies undo understanding of and respect for UX and CX. They undo customer-centricity by focusing on speed over quality. It's hard to teach the value of good design and deep, thorough work while teaching teammates and leaders that CX can be done quickly by workshops and templates. Asperologies are hurting the CX and UX profession and the quality of what we deliver to customers. I can't wait until companies run more numbers on the costs of workshops, negative outcomes, UX having to redesign it, engineering having to rebuild it, and customer support dealing with the carnage. Then maybe these workshops will go away. We fill our world with catchy sayings that we use as excuses when we're not agile, lean, or building what customers would give 5 stars out of 5. Just ship it, often without knowing if it's the right solution for our customers. We'll fix it later. How often do we really fix it later? When is later? What will we have to delay? And what will it cost? Why are we releasing something we know is broken and will need to be fixed later? Users will have to figure it out, or they will flood you with support tickets, or they'll cancel, leave, or give up. Fail fast. There's nothing cool about failing fast or slowly when real paying or trial customers suffer with your failure. If you're not embarrassed, you shipped too late. Does this mean that our goal is to be embarrassed by our product? Most of us would prefer to feel proud that our product is a great match to customers' needs and tasks. Lean is the least we can do to get to the next step. Lean disagrees. This is a bastardization of Lean that seemed to come from the Lean Startup book. Anybody who has studied Toyota's original approach to Lean or Lean Six Sigma knows that Lean is about identifying and cutting waste. Fake Lean is wasteful and takes us down wrong paths, which means we should cut fake Lean for not being lean. Move fast and break things. Sure, only if you fix those things before the public struggles with them. It's good enough for the engineering team, for stakeholders, or for our paying or trial customers. We've been experimenting with speed over quality methods for years now, and it should be pretty clear from our project costs, ROI, customer support tickets, tweets about us, our stock price, and other hints that this often doesn't work. We must stop praying to the false gods of speed and give your customers broken things. We must stop using any of these as excuses for low effort or failures. All of this is high waste, not lean, not agile. Quality code for a bad feature that doesn't match customers' needs or tasks is the wrong way to go. Putting band-aids on symptoms without fixing core problems is the wrong way to go. Assuming customers are happy with minimally viable ideas that they have to figure out and keep figuring out when you release another experiment is the wrong way to go. Releasing crap now that we know we have to fix later is risky, wasteful, customer peripheric, and the wrong way to go. If we know now that this is going to need fixes later, we should raise our standards for what gets released. It doesn't go to the public if CX hasn't confirmed it's a 5 stars out of 5 match to users' needs, tasks, and perspectives. Remember that many of these phrases came from books from 10 years ago about startups that didn't have anybody dedicated to the customer experience. Startup founders and maybe a few other people were going to guess at what customers wanted, rush that out, and find out later if they are near or far from what people need. We thought it was cool when Facebook said, fail fast. But Facebook fails often and in ways none of us should be emulating. And why would we emulate startups who fail at least 90% of the time? Why not emulate the companies we admire most, maybe Apple or Disney? I've had a $380 billion oil and gas company tell me they think like a startup. Really? Are you sure you're operating or thinking like a startup? Are you in danger of going out of business in 4 weeks because you're going to run out of money? I've had a VP from a $1 billion company tell me that if you're not embarrassed, you shipped too late. Where has everybody's critical thinking gone? Let's shift away from methods meant for startups looking for their first investor. MVPs are rarely customer-centric. When someone mentions the MVP, this cartoon is typically brought out. It shows that you wouldn't build a car by starting with one wheel, then 2 wheels, then the car's body, and finally a full car. The cartoon shows that an MVP would be like building a skateboard first, then a kick scooter, then a bicycle, then a motorcycle, and finally the car you wanted to build in the first place. In reality, neither of these are the MVP. If we're starting with sad user faces, we're getting this wrong. In both examples, the early products you're releasing to users aren't close to what you're trying to build. If users need a car, neither a single wheel nor a skateboard will be a match to their needs. The MVP was intended mostly for startups who had no UX staff, no product staff, and possibly no research on their target users' needs, tasks, and workflows. Startups who had to try to impress investors by showing they could release software quickly. If that's not who we are, and even if it is the MVP still right for us? Users don't want minimally viable anything, so make sure customers would give every release 5 stars out of 5. Another problem here is that since most companies are feature factories, the CX team is typically told to build a skateboard, often without knowing if the car will exist or what users needed that might end up looking like the car. This means that we design for the now and the box that we were put in. We're not able to think ahead or future-proof the project by designing for the ultimate goal or solution. Reframe the MVP. If you want to release a slice of something first, make sure that it delivers maximum user value. Instead of a skateboard, it's a small car. The MVP is supposed to be a tiny slice of our solution to check that we're going in the right direction. If you're releasing a full product or platform, that's not an MVP. If you don't allow significant changes later to the MVP based on what we learn, it wasn't an MVP. And remember that CX and UX are your business intelligence, customer intelligence, and risk mitigation team. We can know before we write code if this is the right execution of the right idea. What do we do instead of Asperologies to help us be more user-focused? First, let's get to know User-Centered Design, UCD, which is also called Human-Centered Design, HCD. It has multiple phases, including research, content strategy, information architecture, interaction design, testing, and visual design. Each phase has multiple tasks that can be done. CX and UX professionals must approach this process strategically, deciding which tasks are needed, how long those will take, in what order we'll do them, and what resources are required. Order does matter here because each phase is informed by the phases that came before it. Our research informs everything we do later. Information architecture informs interaction design. I've made this look linear, but in fact, it's fluid and cyclical. For example, testing our interaction design concepts often leads to iteration. This means another round of information architecture and interaction design work. We should test again before we can call this completed. In this case, our work spirals its way to the best design solution. Each iteration gets the designer closer to properly clarifying root causes and coming to the correct design solution. You also hear a lot about models that say things like learn, build, and test. That's an oversimplification considering all of the steps any of us take to learn, build, and test. But learning, building, testing, and improving are baked into the UCD process. You can also see how models that start with build are missing a lot of early learning that we should do if we care about building the right things for our target audiences. You might also hear discover, define, design, validate, and iterate. Double Diamond is a derivative of UCD. All of these models or processes can be superimposed onto the phases and tasks of user-centered design. I'd like to introduce you to task analysis, which I prefer over jobs to be done. Task analysis is normally done after qualitative research, like observing users and interviewing them. You can't do a great task analysis based on surveys or what we guess about people. Even diary studies can leave out steps or workarounds that the user thinks aren't important to mention. If we had observed these people, we would have noticed those missing puzzle pieces. Task analysis starts with a researcher creating a flow detailing every step the user takes based on what the researcher observed during the study. This is the what. What did they do? The researcher then adds notes related to the tools, knowledge, and workarounds the user employed to try to accomplish that step. This is the how of each step. They checked a sticky note they keep at their desk. They went into a photo editing software first. They asked a coworker where to find the right form. We also add issues and concerns, anything that might be an obstacle for this step of the process. Documenting the tools, knowledge, workarounds, issues, concerns, and obstacles give us 6 new categories where we could find behaviors, themes, preferences, unmet needs, insights, and opportunities. Sure, we want to improve the steps of the process, but we can also make improvements that account for all of these other areas. Researchers then analyze the task flow and what we learned from our observations and interviews. Look for knowledge gaps, the difference between what we assumed people knew or understood and what they actually know or understand. You'll see this in observational research, especially when people use workarounds, get stuck, or give up. Let me give you an example from some research my company did in 2021. Our observational research asked people to shop online for a certain item knowing that they have $1,000 to spend and they need to get a quantity of 125. Many people grabbed a real calculator or their smartphone calculator and divided 1,000 by 125. They decided they had $8 to spend per item, but were surprised when at the end of the task they were over budget. Only one participant did the math and then said, "No, I don't really have $8 per item. I probably have $6 per item because you're going to add setup fees, shipping, and tax." She was right. Not only did we see the calculator used as a tool, but we also saw the knowledge only one person had, that shopping for this type of item had a lot of added costs at the end. So back to task analysis, we then create an optimized task flow by looking at anywhere the system can take workload off the user. This isn't just automation and making the system perform steps of the task. This is also intelligently and deliberately architecting our systems to account for what we expect people to know or remember. Build knowledge into the system. Deliberately architect for where people used outside tools or workarounds and where they had obstacles. For that e-commerce project, we added to the product page a way for people to enter their total budget. The system would then deduct taxes, shipping, and setup fees and tell you how many of this item you could afford. As you changed color, shipping speed, and other item parameters, the number of items you could get for that budget changed. Not only did this solve multiple problems and fix the tool and knowledge dependency, but we invented something no other competitor was doing. We saw 20 competitors during our research, and nobody had a way to enter your budget and see how many you can get. You can start to see how a technique like this goes far beyond what we tend to know now from surveys, or A/B tests. If you'd like to learn more, just type Delta CX task analysis into YouTube and you'll find lots of lessons that we've done. Changing from being a feature factory to being customer-centric and user-obsessed will require a change to our processes. Many teams start with requirements, user stories, or feature ideas. They might be our what-ifs, how-abouts, or how-might-we's. These ideas are often a guess, assumption, or hope, sometimes based on a desired user outcome, but often based on a desired business outcome. Ideas around functionality become features we plan and roadmap. We feed these into the product world, and we ask UX designers to create wireframes and prototypes for those ideas. Our solution is based on pre-decided features. This approach is called being feature-oriented. You decide features first, and everything is planned around that. But what if these aren't a good match to users' needs, tasks, or realities? We may have created a lot of delay, waste, and risk thinking we're fast. There are delay, waste, and risk when we're hoping to find out later if our guesses were good or not. It might be weeks or months until we get survey results or analytics, and we hope we've picked the right things to measure. Feature-oriented processes are easy to spot because they normally start with build. They assume you can't learn what customers need or prefer until you have released something live to some or all of the public. Feature-oriented processes assume that it's not worth the time to try to learn more before just trying your first idea, or they assume that we will guess really well exactly what people need. But instead of being a feature factory, consider another approach called task-oriented design. It's been around for decades, and it requires what we research and learn about real users' tasks to be the focal point, their workflows, their unmet needs. Observational research helps us see where tasks are bad or inefficient for people, the same people who will tell you in a survey, focus group, or interview that they like these screens and everything is just fine. The results of observational research help us define the overarching product and UX strategy. Once we have this strategy and a mountain of customer intelligence the research gave us, UX, product, and engineering can collaborate on prioritizing pain points and opportunities. Product, UX, and engineering can then roadmap and plan their work. Ultimately, the features derive from the solution. The solution can be broken into features, stories, JIRA tickets, backlog items, however your engineering teams want to do it. Task-oriented, research-driven processes are business intelligence, customer intelligence, and risk mitigation. They give us the right set of information from which to create strategies, goals, and initiatives. Tritrac Agile imagines 3 main streams of work going on simultaneously. The first track is working on research, strategies, opportunities, and the artifacts from research. These feed a second track, which is research-informed. Being data-driven sounds good, but we must include qualitative CX and UX research insights and not just numbers. The second track works on road mapping, architecting and designing the product, and testing and improving it. Notice that research informs roadmaps. That would be task-oriented design. As that work is ready, it's fed into engineering's world. This requires lots of planning. Engineering doesn't want to sit around with nothing to do, waiting for CX. So CX must estimate their own time early in planning and at every phase. Non-CX roles should not guess what CX workers will do and how long they'll need. Everything related to Agile, Scrum, and engineering lives in the delivery stream. That way, engineering can do their work with whatever approaches or styles they prefer, and it doesn't affect how product and CX are working. A diagram like this also highlights why it's important to have specialized CX researchers separate from specialized CX architects and designers. Some companies are trying to combine these into one job, but it would be hard, if not impossible, for one person to do 2 different streams of work at the same time and do it well. Customer centricity requires us to care more about the quality of the work being done. We want world-class research and world-class architecture and design done before world-class engineering and delivery. At a high level, the process I'm suggesting looks like this. We start with research. We can't find root causes, needs, workflows, tasks, workarounds, or knowledge, or its lack, without diving into people, systems, and context. Research tells us what target customers will find valuable and a high-quality experience that meets or exceeds their expectations. Instead of starting with features, ideas, and guesses, we would start from knowledge about our target and current customers. This is also how product discovery would generally work. If you're working from qualitative research data, then you already know where there are unmet needs. You can skip some of the discovery steps you use now that try to determine if anybody would want this feature idea we have. This research then feeds our three voices: product, UX, and engineering. They can examine research insights, opportunities, unmet needs, tasks, and pain points. They would then prioritize these. These are the problems we're planning to solve. Before we prioritize features, let's figure out which problems and needs are the ones to address first. I have a video lesson on prioritization. Just go to YouTube and search for Delta CX prioritization. Now that we've decided priorities, everybody can create their roadmaps and plans. This includes time estimations. Yes, CX and UX need to be able to draw up roadmaps and plans that include time estimations. This image is from NNG and it shows roadmaps at varying levels. The product roadmap takes a general look at what engineering, UX, marketing, and possibly others are doing and when. CX would have its own roadmap for the research, content, interaction design, and visual design that we'll need to plan. Each domain within CX might have their own roadmaps and plans. Some people roadmap very broadly, like here's what we're working on now, here's what's next, and here's what's more down the road. Some people roadmap by quarter, release, or month. I tend to be more of a planner, so I might have higher level roadmaps, and then instead of specialty roadmaps, I have specific plans for each project that plan work down to the day. It's going to be hard to roadmap or plan at a higher level if I don't have a good sense of what we can reasonably accomplish in a day, week, or month. Notice that none of this is at the feature level. None of this says, pay your bill online will have this flow and these screens. The problem we're addressing is the user can't pay their bill online. At this planning stage, we don't have exact features yet. We will know what the features are once CX works on the best and simplest ideas and executions of those ideas. CX architects or designers create the features based on what best solves the problem, need, or pain point. Features might change as UX decides the best way to solve the problem. Therefore, it's hard to decide the features first. It's like asking your doctor how you will be cured when they're just starting to run some tests to understand your symptoms. Tritrac Agile makes the most sense here. In a task-oriented process, research feeds everything. Researchers are constantly working on something. It might be something we need to learn before we start roadmapping our product. It might be something we need to learn or test while designing the product. And if we find at any point that we're guessing, assuming, making things up, or hypothesizing, which I like to joke is Greek for guessing, make sure to involve research. Let's replace guesses with knowledge so that we can mitigate risk. Once CX has a tested and vetted solution, you can break that into features, stories, requirements, or whatever your company prefers to do. If the company wants to release something that is less than what CX created, possibly to call that an MVP, we should take a good look at the designs to make sure there is some smaller version of this that still delivers user value and solves the problem. If reducing the product, just to have an MVP, would remove delight, usability, usefulness, or feasibility, let's please not strip it down. We should only release what customers are likely to give 5 stars out of 5. How should we resource our projects and staff up our departments? Let's start with the unfortunate fact that many of UX's teammates believe that UX isn't agile, but this is easily explained. Once upon a time, a team of 4 developers and 2 QA professionals wanted 4 sprints to do their work, which would be 6 people needing 8 weeks of work. That's normal. We don't call that big engineering upfront. But when UX wants 8 weeks to do something, this is sacrilegious. People clutch their pearls and cry that UX must be bloated, old-fashioned, and waterfall. But we assign someone from UX to that team. At most companies where I've worked, my time was split between 3 projects. So not only does engineering expect something nearly immediately, but they expect it from 1/3 of a person. And at many companies I've worked at, there are maybe 4 CX or UX researchers supporting every project the entire UX department is doing. I have to wait weeks for a researcher to be free if I need research or testing. This staffing imbalance is completely inefficient and will never be agile. Sometimes this 1/3 of a person is expected to do everything: research, interpretation, competitive analysis, content strategy, information architecture, interaction design, visual design, and more. First, these jobs are completely unreasonable. Second, you're setting someone up for failure. There is no way that person can get all of that done well. CX work has to be done well. We're not just checking a box that it got done. Let's visualize how a larger CX team can work by using a real example from the project that we did with that e-commerce company. They wanted 2 new concepts for their landing pages that shoppers would see when coming from Google Shopping ads. We started with research. We took the time to understand users' criteria before they even start shopping. We observed them shopping on Google, competitors' websites, and our client's website. We recruited people who have shopped on our client's site before and people who had never seen the site before. We had a mountain of business intelligence that should help this company strategize and prioritize a variety of projects. We spent around 370 hours on research and 210 hours for 2 landing page designs and rounds of testing and improvements. Put one UX jack-of-all unicorns on this at 100% allocation, and 580 hours of work take 19 weeks. Of course that's not agile, and this would take way longer if this resource were allocated less than 100%. What does this look like with my suggested team structure? 3 researchers sharing 370 hours of work could get that work done in about 4 weeks. 2 designers working full-time on 210 hours of work could take around 4 weeks. Looking back at our unicorn, you might like the idea of hybrids or generalists who can research and design, but this ends up a bit waterfall and high risk to have everything relying on one person and their health and availability. With the Delta CX model plus Tritrac Agile, we have a more efficient assembly line rather than waiting for one person to do the whole assembly line themselves. This means that our 580 hours of work could be done within about 4 2-week sprints, given the size of the CX team that we assigned to the project. This helps with agility and takes the pressure off one very overworked person. Tritrac Agile doesn't require that CX or UX plan in sprints. Whatever we call units of time, we will just need to plan ahead so that everybody knows when different tasks will be done and delivered. Let's look at some sample timing. Let's say we want to release our new feature in early September. Engineering has estimated 8 weeks of time once they get finalized designs from CX or UX. Meanwhile, engineering will work on other projects or refactoring, or they might start on the back-end work for this project, like databases, microservices, or APIs for the new feature. This means that for engineering to start in early July, CX has to be completely done by the end of June. Let's say we're padding our time a little and we estimate 10 weeks for our research and design work. This means CX must start no later than mid-April to be done at the end of June. If it's still March, we can plan this now. If it's already May, we're in trouble since CX should have started weeks ago. That's why one of the main solutions to a lot of problems in software and tech companies is better and earlier planning. Some people say that's not Agile or Lean, planning ahead so much. But I have no idea what world they're living in. Who wants to be surprised last minute by projects because someone thinks that proper planning isn't Agile or Lean? Good planning and giving teams the time to do world-class work aren't waste we can cut. If 6 to 10 engineers working on something for weeks or months is agile and totally normal and nothing special, then 5 CX or UX practitioners working on something for weeks or months is agile and totally normal, and more agile than how you're allocating CX or UX today. Hire qualified CX and UX researchers and architects until there are no bottlenecks. It's easy, but it only happens when leaders fight for budget and headcount. Agile typically defines quality as improved software performance, few or no bugs, meet stakeholder requirements. Agile typically defines done as completing the work we planned to do. It fit business objectives. It's coded, tested, documented, and deployable. These definitions of quality and done seem to be self-reflective. Hey, did I do what I meant to do? And does it seem to be working well? Then I declare it quality and done. This is where we need to introduce customer centricity. Congratulations on writing working code, but does our product match our users' and customers' definitions of quality or done? Does it fit their tasks and needs? Did the system optimize or complicate a workflow? It's all back to product market fit. If engineering's code is high quality and feels done, but the concept doesn't match what customers need, is it still quality? Is it done? Or was all of that time spent engineering the wrong so-called solution a waste of time and budget? Let's not congratulate ourselves so quickly. We must be careful to not use engineering's definitions of quality or done as our only definitions. This feature is not quality or done if the customer would send it back to the kitchen or leave it low ratings. Yes, the definition of done can embody risk mitigation, but only if you use customers' definitions of quality and done. If you only use engineering's measurements about engineering, you're missing the key to that risk mitigation. Wrapping up. Tie customer centricity to business intelligence, customer intelligence, and risk mitigation. Business intelligence allows companies to create better strategies, goals, and initiatives. They'll have the right information to make better decisions. Risk identification and mitigation save us time, money, customer trust, and all of those costs of poor quality. We typically say yes to everything because we don't think we can say no. But who said we have to say yes to everything, especially unreasonable requests and timeframes? Who said we have to say yes to people trying to change the very nature of our jobs and why we were hired? It's okay to say no, or maybe we're saying yes this time, but talking to teammates about how it has to work differently next time. It's okay to say, that amount of time is unreasonable. You should have planned this with me so that I could have estimated my own time. It's okay to say, no, we need to do research here because we're providing business intelligence, trying to minimize risks, and maximizing customer satisfaction. No, engineering is not allowed to control what UX and CX do, how they do it, who does it, and in what amount of time. No, we shouldn't hold a workshop on new features when we don't understand why our users do or don't do things. Let's know this first. A good follow-up to saying no is, let's document this as a risk, and then do that. Transforming toward customer centricity requires various shifts in mindset and changes to process, but it's something everybody in every department can improve. Where can you start? Critical thinking and asking questions. Challenge the status quo. Experiment with new ideas and ways of doing things. Replace, we can't do that, with, let's figure out how to do that. Empower individuals and teams to be problem finders and problem solvers, not just order takers. Learn from our failures, but preferably move more of those failures out of the public eye. Catch more of our failures during UX processes, which is part of the reason these processes exist. Research first, research often, find the data that will help us make better decisions. Put yourself in your users' and customers' shoes. Go into our website and app and try to accomplish your task. Was it awesome, easy, delightful, 5 stars out of 5? Would you recommend it to a friend? But you're not your user, so rather than going by our own opinions, let's make sure we're improving our knowledge through research. This is where our coworkers can start, a mindset shift that will create a behavior shift. They're not just thinking differently, they should start acting differently. Think critically, ask questions, and push on the things we see going wrong. I'm working on a survey you can use internally to measure how you're doing with customer centricity. Have product, UX, and engineering fill this out, and then check your scores month over month, quarter over quarter. You can check it out at cxcc.to/11pillars, PILLARS-survey. Feel free to use it or make your own variation. Thanks so much for attending. For more information, check out the deltacx.com website, the Delta CX YouTube channel, and if you're interested in any of the training or coaching, especially that go with the longer version of this, let me know. You can find me at deb@deltacx.com.